Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Louis Prima Jr. performs at City Winery this Thursday night in Northeast D.C. I spoke with him about his father Louis Prima's jazz, swing, and big band career, as well as him voicing King Louie in Disney's The Jungle Book. Hey, Louis Prima Jr., thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're talking because you are coming Thursday night to City Winery in Northeast D.C. Now, where does this fall in terms of you getting back out after the pandemic? How long have you been going now?
We started in July. We had just a few dates in July. We had an entire leg of the tour canceled end of July into August, and we've been on the road since August 26th, and this will be the second to last show before we head down south for a southern leg.
Gotcha. How exciting has it been to finally get back out of there? I mean, you must have been climbing the walls for a while, just itching to get back out there.
I cannot tell you how good it is for my soul and the band's soul to be back on stage performing for people. A year and a half off did none of us any good. It is so neat to just see people enjoying themselves again and being able to listen to and dance to live music and enjoy themselves again. And as far as us on stage, way overdue getting back on stage. We're so excited to be back.
Now, who else on stage with you? If our listeners have never seen you, how many piece band, that kind of thing?
We are a 10-piece band up on stage, and I always include my sound man because without him, we wouldn't sound like we do. But there's 10 of us. We've got a full horn section, full rhythm section. I share singing duties with Kate Curran out of Montclair, New Jersey. And we just have a whole lot of fun. You're going to get Prima, you're going to get Prima Jr., you're going to get a lot of surprises. Dance floor is always open in DC, and we're looking forward to getting back.
Now, what are some, you mentioned we'll get Prima and Prima Jr. So what are some of your dad's songs we'll hear, and then some, maybe, a taste of some of your hits we may hear?
Well, you're going to get the Prima hits. Our first album, Return of the Wildest, which is on Warrior Records, Universal Music Distribution, contains my favorite songs of my dad's, which are pretty much everybody's favorite. I mean, you're going to get Jump, Jive, and Wail. You're going to get Just a Gigolo. You're going to get a couple others that we've redone, possibly Robin Hood, maybe I Want to Be Like You from Jungle Book. And then you're going to get things from us. Our second album contained mostly original material, and our upcoming third album is all original material. So you're going to get songs like Go Let's Go. You're going to get the title track of the second album, Blow, which is an instrumental featuring Marco Paulus, and a crowd favorite. And just a lot of surprises. I mean, we're not opposed to throwing anything out there, from the Rolling Stones to Sheena Easton. It just, you never know what we're going to play on stage. We have a whole lot of fun. The entire band is involved, as well as the crowd.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned Jump, Jive, and Wail, because a lot of people remember the Jungle Book stuff. We can get to that in a second, but talk about Jump, Jive, and Wail. Everyone remembers Brian Setzer Orchestra, I guess it was, but they redid it, but it was actually your dad originally. Remind everybody, he was the original.
My dad wrote that, I believe, in 54 or 56, not sure the year, but he wrote that song. And it was a hit for him back in the day and a crowd favorite. And it, it's been on most of the compilations that they've done throughout the years and released. But Brian Setzer, when he put the big band together after the Stray Cats, I actually was friends with the guys in Royal Crown Review, if anybody remembers them, back when they first formed. And I knew Brian was putting out an album and was going to put Jump, Jive, and Wail on it. And it was neat because it ushered in just a second wave of swing. And I believe he put it on there because of the Gap commercial. If you remember, there was a Gap pants commercial that featured my dad's version of Jump, Jive, and Wail about 6 months to a year before Brian recorded. And I'd like to believe that kicked off the swing revolution, with Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and everybody. But I got a chance to, in New Jersey, get on stage with Brian and do Jump, Jive, and Wail about 4 years ago, and it was a heck of a lot of fun. He's a he's a kind cat, talented musician. The band was smoking. So it's just neat that throughout the years, my father's music has resurfaced one way or another, through remakes or through movies and commercials, and it keeps him relevant.
I had not thought about that Gap commercial in decades. So thank you for bringing that back. I forgot.
Right.
That's great. No, you're right. Your dad's music, it just shows up everywhere. Well, we spoken a lot about your dad, but take me back to, I want to hear your origin story, if you will. Like you were born in what, 65, I guess grew up just outside of Vegas, right? How early, what are your earliest memories of, I guess your dad's music must have been playing around the house, or you must have been aware that he was a famous musician, right?
I don't know if we were aware he was famous. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans and Las Vegas, and just as early as I can remember, my dad was bringing us on stage, and like my first song I ever sang on stage, I must have been probably only 4 or 5 years old, was uh, Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a bullfrog, Joy to the World from Three Dog Night.
Yeah, we just
Uh,
talked to them like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Small
right.
world.
The second song I sang was Your Mama Don't Dance, Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll, Loggins and Messina. And then the third one was On Top of Spaghetti. But my dad used to love getting me on the stage, and he would have me tell jokes and whisper the joke in my ear. And I had no idea I'm telling dirty jokes on stage. And the crowd loved it. But, to me, it was normal life. I mean, I knew my dad was a musician, but and I think maybe being in Las Vegas at the time, having a performer for a parent was kind of normal, and they just went to work at 5 o'clock at night instead of 9 in the morning. So, the music was always there. I think music was a big part of our life growing up, both with my father and my mother, Gia, my own. She's the one that taught me how to play drums when I was 5. So music was kind of always a part of life, as well as the all of the trappings that come with, I guess, fame. But I did get to follow my father around a lot when he was in town. We toured with him on the road, and I got to see how he treated people, and he was never too busy to shake a hand or say hello to a fan, even just on the way to get coffee. And I think that impacted me more than his music.
Yeah, that's a good example to see for sure. Now, you mentioned it real quick. We spent a lot of time talking about your dad, but I'm glad you mentioned your mom. So you said she's the one that taught you how to play drums at age 5. Go into that story. But did she just bring home a drum kit one day, or what was that story?
I don't remember where the kit came from, whether it was a birthday or a Christmas gift. It was a tiny, tiny little blue set, and I had 2 different colored drumsticks. They were metal. But it was, it was actual real drum kit. And there's a picture on my social media somewhere buried on there, quite a few times of me playing it. But my mother, was an accomplished musician and entertainer, and, met auditioned for my father when she was 21. But she loved music. There was a piano in the house, and we started to learn piano on that. And my aunt, my father's sister, Sister Mary Ann, she was a nun down in New Orleans. She actually gave me piano lessons starting in, I believe, first or second grade. But my mom was probably the biggest influence. She was on the piano every day. She loved to play the drums, and sat me down and taught me how to, do a basic, boom, chick, boom, boom beat. And I guess it's been no looking back since, even though I've been in and out of music a bit. But music was there, man.
How much did that, you were talking a lot how you were sort of growing up around the Vegas area, but then, of course, you mentioned you moved to New Orleans. How much did that move to New Orleans, you think, really set you and your dad on a path there?
We, my dad was from here. I'm living here now. I moved in the middle of the pandemic back home. I mean, I grew up here young, and then again, when my father was sick, we moved back down here as well, with my mom. And I think the two cultures, Vegas and New Orleans, are very similar in a lot of aspects, in just the party atmosphere of the town. But I think New Orleans really sets the soul for what my father was, just for the, I mean, U.S. American music can be traced back to New Orleans. The street musicians, the accomplished musicians, like the music scene here is incredible. There are so many people playing within the city and that have come from the city, and just the people themselves, the way you're treated, the food, the atmosphere. I think that it's the reason my father loved this place so much, and I'm pretty sure it's why I love it so much and was so anxious to come back. But it's the music scene here, I can't explain um that. Yeah, I've been a lot of places. I grew up through rock and roll, and band, sometimes music is seen as a competition, but the music scene down here, everybody embraces everybody lifts everybody up, and the music is just incredible.
That's so great to hear. I'm glad you view it that way. I want to know some of your earliest, your gigs once you're in New Orleans. Like, I know you've been in and out of music, but even before you started that band Problem Child out of high
Yeah.
school, even before that, didn't you get to play in some bowl games, like, as a marching band kind of a thing?
I did a lot of marching band, but that was I graduated Clark High School in Las Vegas, and I went there for the full term. Um, and I
So that
had
was
one
before
of
you moved to New Orleans, then.
Yeah, well, this was after. So I was in New Orleans. I think I was consciously when I was very young, a baby, and then like first and second and third grade. Then we moved back to Vegas. Then I moved back fifth, sixth, seventh. Moved back to Vegas in the eighth grade. So we moved around a lot. But the I had one of the greatest band directors at Clark High School. His name was Bill McMosley. He just passed away about a year ago. What just a great musician, a great teacher, a great influence on everybody that passed before him was live. And we got to do a lot. I mean, we played at the Fiesta Bowl, at the Sun Bowl. We marched in parades all over the country. We performed in countless jazz competitions and things, and I think that's where I got my biggest exposure into music, was through high school, because I hadn't really picked it up seriously until we moved back to Vegas. I mean, I hadn't picked up the trumpet, save for maybe blowing a couple notes with my dad when I was young, but I didn't pick it up seriously until the eighth grade.
Wow. All right, so then I guess what, mid '90s, you form your own band. You've done a lot with your dad, but this is like, I'm gonna do my own band called Problem Child. I just smile thinking about that. You must look back fondly as well.
Oh, you know what? There's times in your life you won't trade for anything, and I wouldn't change a thing, good or bad. I formed that band. Actually started in '87, and we '86, and we went through very late '95, '96. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I've never been a cover music guy. I think I have a kind of a distinct voice, and something that doesn't lend itself to singing Bon Jovi songs or Journey songs. So we set out and did original music, and did it successfully for 9 to 10 years, courting major labels, and playing all over the place, and to sell out crowds. I still have people come up to me today. When you run into somebody from back in that day, they'll hum a line from the song we wrote back then called the Moon Tune, that was everybody's favorite. And so I guess we were well liked. We just never got that record deal, and I got a little frustrated with the music business, the business end of it, and the changing tides into grunge music. Music became unhappy, and I don't think I think music should lift your soul and make you smile and not be depressing. So I decided to take a break.
Yeah, you don't think Louis Prima or Louis Prima Jr. and grunge depressing. You don't,
No,
those
not at
don't
all.
go together.
Not at all. Not at all.
And there's been some great grunge bands I love as well, but
Absolutely.
not not
Absolutely.
not your style for sure.
It isn't my style, and I've always been a person. I've got to be happy with what I'm doing, whether it's a day job or getting on stage, and I feel that everybody should be that way. Be happy in what you do, and make sure that it does your soul good to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned your day job. So, wasn't there a period there then that I mean, you said you sort of moved away from music. What industry, what line of work did you sort of get into? I know you sort of dabbled in music on the side a little still, but like, talk about that gap period.
Well, I always dabbled in music. I would always go sit in with friends, and I had a little AC/DC tribute band project that I did here and there, just small.
What was it called?
It was called the last one was called High Voltage. I think they're still around in Las Vegas, but
Nice.
we I'm a businessman at heart, and my mother's family is all in the restaurant business, so I kind of quickly broke into the restaurant business. I'd been managing things back in high school, and I weaseled my way rather quickly into a management position at food and beverage at the airport in Las Vegas for HMS Host. I was the acting assistant general manager for the entire airport. We did $115 million a year in sales. We had, I don't know, 3,000 employees. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it's dealing with people and encouraging people and helping people along. And I did it primarily. I got into it because I started raising a family. I raised two boys by myself. Um, and I didn't want to be on the road, and I'm a road guy. I don't like playing in one place every night of the week and every week of the year. I like to be on the road. I like to bring music to people. I love it. And so I wanted my kids to grow up and have a father and have some stability. And when I knew that they were both old enough to take care of each other and be on their own for the times that I'd be on their own, I got back into it. And that's when I started doing my dad stuff.
Love it, love it. Wasn't there a point in there? I'm not sure of the chronology here, but wasn't there a point during that period where you and your sister joined up with your father's old keyboard player for a band?
We actually did that. This was right when I gave up on the rock music. So this would have been 95, 96. We hooked up with Bruce Zarka, who played with my father in the latter part of his career in the 70s. I believe he wrote the Pepsi theme um, back in the 70s. That was his claim to fame. Phenomenal uh, keyboard player on the B3, like a monster. And we played with him for a while. And at that time, I was like, all right, let me settle down and make a living at music and stay in Vegas. And we just kind of hit it at the wrong time. The unions were gone and recorded music was taken over, and they were getting rid of the lounges and things, and it just kind of never stuck. And I think that helped fuel my need to get out of it for a while.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, cool. Well, then, as you said, then you sort of, you did your own thing, some other industries, being a dad, all that kind of stuff. And then I guess what in your early to mid 40s, you're like, all right, they say don't quit your day job, but you did, right? You came back, you came back and pursued music full time.
Absolutely, I did. Look, I ran into a friend of mine in Vegas, actually on the way to see my sister's show one night, and he had an opportunity for some people that were looking for a Louis Prima style act, and he had told them, "What if I could get Junior?" And it kind of all within the same week. I ended up flying to San Francisco to do a show for the Bohemian Club for a friend of mine, Rick Varney, who owns Shrapnel Records. And it just kind of set me on a course going, you know what, I think I can do this music and make it fresh and make it exciting and create new and move it forward. I'm not a tribute guy band and I'm not a cover band, but I wanted to use my father's music as a tool to help me get going again, and also to help the world never forget my father and his contribution to music. So that was in 2004. And that's when the band, you start looking for band members, and we're doing shows here and there, and everything's kind of moving along. And then I stumble across Marco Palos in California in 2000, or early 2010. Actually, I think it was January. We played at a place called the Dragonfly, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm your sax player." And I said, "Well, that's all fine and great. Come and audition, and can you bring a couple other horn players?" I've been playing with monsters at the time, but I want entertainers. So he auditioned, and in the middle of the first song, I knew that he was the guy. And the people that he brought with him were the guys. And I solidified the rhythm section kind of in the same way with a friend of mine, Mikey Bones, rest his soul. And we got the guys in the band that wanted to commit to being a band, not just reading charts and getting a paycheck. Nothing against them, but that's not what I wanted. And once we got those guys, it was the summer of 2010, and the first big show we did was Jazz Fest down in New Orleans, and it just you knew it was right, and you knew it felt right, and I went home and quit my job.
Wow.
And said, let's move forward. And who would have thought that 2 years later I got a record deal? I mean, yeah, I got into music to get a record deal, not to record songs in my garage and put them out. And at 45, somebody believed in us enough to say, here, sign on the dotted line and I'll put you in the studio. It's just a lesson that if you believe in yourself and put in the work and do the time, eventually something good's going to happen.
That's very cool. And yeah, thanks for mentioning that New Orleans Jazz Fest. I mean, that year 2010 was a very pivotal year for what you're talking about. It's doing your own thing, playing at the Jazz Fest in New Orleans, but then the same year your father gets a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It would have been his 100th birthday, right? Yeah, 100th birthday.
It was his 100th birthday,
He was
and
born in 1910.
yep. And my management team, Seth Udall from UD Factory and his partner at the time, Mike Licata, were actually instrumental in getting the star on the Walk of Fame finally, just through connections and saying the right thing and doing the right thing. And that was a unique event and a brilliant event. Jazz Fest was dedicated to my dad. We played his birthday party in Las Vegas on December 7th. So it was a neat year, and kind of poetic how it works out that that's my kicking off point. And and we haven't really looked back since. The star ceremony was a catalyst to us recording in Capitol Records, our second album, and our upcoming third album. Our record label put us in Capitol Records in the same room my father was to record. So it's all kind of serendipitous, and I always believe that things happen for a reason, and being in the right place at the right time helps. Hard work and dedication helps, and sometimes the gods get involved, and it all works out, man.
Yeah, it all sort of come full circle. Well, tons of tie-ins there, but in parallels. I love it between
Yes.
father and son. Well, you mentioned it. You finally got that your debut album, Return of the Wildest. And of course you're calling yourself Prima and the Witnesses there. So you decided not to go with Problem Child 2 or something, right? How did you come up with the Witnesses? Is that because you grew up as a witness to music history, or where does that come from?
That was the name of my dad's band, starting in the 50s.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Nice.
Yeah, and there's several stories on why it came about, and I don't know why it came about that they were called the Witnesses, but it's I did it for a bit of name recognition. I did it as a way to protect the name as well for my father's estate, and it just kind of sticks. We've toiled over the years going, let's get rid of the Louis Prima Jr. or let's get rid of the Witnesses or let's call it something else. And it just, it's a big name. People yell at me because they can't fit it on the marquee, but it's it's the name, and it sticks, and it's and it's important to me to let everybody know that I could not do this without my band and the musicians that I share a stage with, because they are the show and the reason why I do this. Or it would just be me dancing around on stage like a monkey, and where that would be poetic as well. It's just not what I wanted. So leave the name up there and we move forward.
Yes, well, thanks for the segue because the Jungle Book, before we run, was, I mean, man, that was my favorite Disney movie growing up as a kid. And then they put out The Lion King and stuff. I loved them when they came out when I was a kid. But in terms of
Yeah,
the classic stuff, I friggin' love the Jungle Book, and that does fit on a marquee.
it
but
did.
at what age do you see? I mean, obviously you're growing up back. I mean, it probably wasn't there. It wasn't on VHS or anything. You actually probably saw it in a theater. Was it like a re-release, or what was your first experience seeing your dad as King Louie on the screen and being like, "Hey, that's my dad singing. I want to be like you."
One of my earliest memories, and you can call me crazy because I couldn't have been 3 or 4 when the movie premiered in Vegas at the Centorama. It was a big giant dome movie theater. Um, and I consciously remember sitting and hearing my father's voice up on the screen, and then turning and looking at my father and going, "How is that happening?" Um, and then of course, as you grow up and get older, yeah, I definitely knew that he did it, and it was a huge part of his life. And it's the one, it's one song. It's actually the first song that we recorded for the first album, and we had never played it live before. But I wanted to do it, and we changed it up slightly from what the movie version would be. And I did it because it's the one song, it's the one song everybody knows. If I'm traveling around and somebody says, "Who's Louis Prima?" and you start listing off songs and movies and etc., if they still don't get it, if you mention Jungle Book, they know immediately. I mean, everybody has seen that movie. When it was the first time we played Gretna, Louisiana. I believe it was 2007 or 8. They have it's called Gretna Fest. It's a huge music festival, 11 stages, etc. It's right on the Mississippi River. And I remember after the show, taking pictures and meeting fans and things and talking to people. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman and her child standing there, and they're waiting ever so patiently, kind of off to the side, very quiet. And I noticed them, and I kind of stopped what I was doing and walked over to them. And the woman told me that it's their first week back in New Orleans since Hurricane Katrina, that her and her son had to leave the city, and they left everything behind, and they went to Chicago to move in with her mother. And they lost absolutely everything. And when they were running from the house, the only thing that the son grabbed was a VHS copy of "I Want to Be" of Jungle Book, because that was his favorite thing in the world. And he had it in his hand, and I cried. And it's it's an iconic song. It's a memorable part of, I think, the majority of the world's childhood memories. So it's one of them songs we do play probably on a nightly basis, just because everybody knows it and loves it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like I said, I was obsessed with that movie, and with all due respect to Christopher Walken in the remake, which might be the best, might be the best live action remake of all the ones they've done too. But that's the power of the Jungle Book. But
Yep.
with all due respect to Christopher Walken, I think your dad, King Louie is the iconic one, man. And George Sanders as Shere Khan, and of course
Right.
Baloo and Bagheera, everyone in that movie. It's just awesome. So, but now, nowadays when I see it on Disney Plus, it is one of those ones where they put one of those little disclaimers for, like that scene is like racial stereotypes. I mean, how do you grapple with that? Because I grappled with this, someone that loved the movie too. But I mean, at least the way I come down on it, if we're gonna have that conversation, at least they're not pulling the movie entirely. They're putting it up and with a little note. But you got to realize this 1967. This was Disney's last movie before he died. It was a completely different time, But how do you? That's got to be mixed feelings for you,
It is, because I have mixed feelings about the entire way in which we approach our history. And because I believe history, good or bad, is there to be learned from and shouldn't be erased or forgotten. When it comes to this movie, though, I I get a little vocal because I find it ridiculous, because Walt Disney, the Schwartz brothers that wrote the song, approached Walt Disney and said, "We found a guy for this character um, because Walt Disney wanted to get jazz in it and things, and they went and saw my father play, because they just wanted antics for the part. They wanted jazz and a good swing band for the part. They didn't go looking for, they weren't trying to stereotype anything, because you know what, my father's Italian, he's not African American. And the witnesses, the band voiced the monkeys. So to, knowing that, to find a stereotype in that part of the movie is very difficult for me. I may be just jaded about it. But it's a little bit weird. But I'm glad they leave it on. I'm glad people talk about issues like this, because they are important. But I'm okay with a warning label going on things rather than erasing it completely. And if you find a stereotype in that part of the movie, I hope you educate yourself and find out what was really about and how they approached my father, and the fact that that was the farthest thing from their mind. And I hope it sparks conversation in all other applications of it, for a learning process, because it's history, good or bad, and we can either learn from it or ignore it. And I feel we should learn from it.
Well, thank you for being so open and honest and
Yeah.
insightful and thoughtful on the question. I mean, we all go through it. I
Absolutely.
like I told you, I grew up loving that movie, and I still do to this day. And so, but yeah, we're all trying to grow and learn and change and think about things. And so, yeah, I mean, thank you for being so honest in your answer.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. I mean, I love your dad's music, and I'm so glad that you're paying such tribute to him. We're gonna get to hear "I Want to Be Like You" at City Winery, you said?
I can promise you, yeah.
Can't wait. All right,
Cool.
so everybody, it's gonna be at City Winery this Thursday in Northeast D.C. Louis Prima Jr. And we can all be witnesses. There you go.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. I didn't know we'd go a half hour, but you were great. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
All right, good luck at the show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.